Hi everyone. Actually this auditorium looks very familiar to me. Like I remember the last time I was here in this auditorium, I was probably sleeping at the back of the lecture or something, but it's a different view here. So anyway, I will start in January this year. There was this day in January this year where I remember it was one of those days where I didn't want to do anything. You know, y'all ever had one of those days where you just didn't want to do anything for the day? And I was sitting in my living room in front of my computer, and I was just scrolling through Facebook aimlessly. I'm sure some of us can identify. I see some nodding heads already. So I was scrolling through Facebook aimlessly, and then suddenly there was this poster by an NUS society that stood out for me. This poster was just there, and it caught my eye because there was this line written on the poster that kind of struck me, and this line said this. It says, "Be the lonely wolf no longer. Come and sign up for this event." And there and then, I felt a little bit uneasy, in the sense that, you know, be the lonely wolf no longer. Think about what message that is subtly trying to bring across. And if we are not careful, we will not realize that there is a certain message being brought across through this sentence, that it is not okay to be a lonely wolf. Think about it. A lone wolf is just someone who prefers doing things alone. But is it really not okay that you have to come for an event like that? And so every day in our lives, certain messages are always being brought across to us that we're not aware of. And if we're not careful, we'll not realize that there is this normal being constructed for us all the time. And this whole thing about a normal is going to be the core of my speech today, which I hope all of us will be able to gain something from. Sometimes this whole idea of a normal affects our attitudes as well. So y'all ever had a moment where, you know, your friend did something completely crazy and off the cuff, and then you just look at your friend and say, "Hey, don't be retarded lah." Got right. I see some nodding heads already. I also got. So I'm not an exception. I have nothing against the word retarded. Okay, I'm not a social justice warrior or anything. But I want to at least bring all of us to think a little bit deeper about why we use the word retarded. We use the word retarded to denote that something is deviant. Something deviates away from the norm. When your friend does something a bit not so normal, you use the word retarded. Sometimes someone you might not really like does something you again don't really like, you just use the word retarded to describe. And when we use the word retarded to denote a deviant act, something that is not normal, and so many of us also use it in association with some communities in Singapore, what happens? So, I have been a volunteer in the special education community for a few years already. I've learned many lessons through all my successes and failures. But some of the most enduring lessons I've learned came because of this whole idea of challenging the normal. And today, I will share with all of us what are the normals that we can challenge and how can we go about doing it. So, my entire journey with APSN, the Association for Persons with Special Needs, a local NGO, started in 2015 during National Day Parade. And during this entire journey, I was serving national service back at that point in time. And my job was to be the chaperone of a group of student and teacher performers from APSN. So at the time, my job every week was just to bring them from Suntec City to the Padang and then bring them back. And you know, back then I was just serving national service, and if I were to ask all the guys in this room who serve NS, what's the one thing you wanted to do on a Saturday? Book out, right? Yeah, you just wanted to book out and go home and not do NS on a Saturday. By that point in time, my hands got a little bit itchy. And in Hokkien, some people might call this 假霸无代志做, which is eat already, nothing better to do. But I thought to myself, you know, since I have this chance to have my life paths crossed with them, why not I do something a bit extra? And so what I decided to do was this gratitude project. You know, if I can do some thank you cards for the students and teachers, and maybe they will appreciate it, just something extra. But then I also want to make it a bit more special. What if I can get the Prime Minister to sign it? If I can get the Prime Minister to sign 30 cards, it would be amazing, right? So I decided to send an email to Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong to ask him, hey, could you sign some 30 cards? He never replied, so I think my email got... my email probably got lost in like, you know, the thousands of mails he gets every day. So I thought to myself, you know, don't give up. If the big boss don't want, maybe one of his kakis will agree. Yeah, so I decided, okay, It's an NGO, APSN. Who is the most logical choice? The Minister for Social and Family Development, which some of you would know to be Minister Tan Chuan Jin. So I Facebook messaged Minister Tan Chuan Jin, and to my great surprise, he actually agreed to meet me to sign all 30 cards. And so we arranged for a timing to meet, and I went to his office, and he actually signed all 30 cards in front of me. We also had a 5-minute conversation, which I was struggling to make convo, but that aside, right? How often do you go to the minister's office to watch him sign cards? Yeah, so he also agreed to hold this card set saying thank you APSN, which I thought was a really, really wonderful gesture. And in the next 2 weeks, I actually invited the principals of both special education schools it's not really clear, I'm so sorry, to come down and present the thank you cards to them. And I think they were really, really excited to receive a card with a picture of Minister Tan Chuan Jin. And so my entire journey with APSN started because of this entire experience. And this brings me to my first enduring lesson I want to share with all of us. There's nothing inherently normal about roles. Every role has certain expectations attached to it, but there's nothing normal about that. If I had accepted the normal expectation of my role as a soldier to just book out and do nothing beyond my job, then perhaps I would not have done some of the important projects I did and even be here talking to all of you. So remember this, you have the power to define your roles, whether you're a student, whether you're an associate, or whether you're a teacher, so on and so forth. Go and define it to make it fulfilling for yourself, and more importantly, for the people around you. So besides roles, what else is it that we can challenge the normal of? So fast forward a few months after the National Day celebrations, I continued linking up with APSN. And by then, I had already formed a team of friends to work on this whole entire project. And I asked APSN, what are some of your needs? And APSN replied, our beneficiaries have they need help with their linguistic abilities. Could you do something about it? So my team and I, we gathered together, hey, what can we do to improve the linguistic abilities? Some of us wanted English lessons, but English lessons, not the best option to me. So in the end, we came up with this really crazy idea. This crazy idea that I think none of us really thought it would ever work out. And you can make a guess what this crazy idea is. I think the MC would have introduced it a bit. And no, it wasn't emailing another ministers. You can't just go around emailing ministers all the time like that. But it was poetry. We decided to use poetry. Now, if I were to ask all of you, how many of you think that you are good in poetry or that you can teach poetry? Raise your hands. Really, no one. At least I expected like 1 or 2. But that's my point. My point is that poetry is normally associated with something that is so high and mighty, something that is so inaccessible, something that, how can I do it, right? But through the next few months, we actually planned and executed close to 10 workshops based on poetry. So during our workshops, we would base it on like metaphors, similes, rhyme, and we would use that to engage the beneficiaries of APSN. I can remember sometimes some people would tell me, hey, Yang Long, you sure you want to use poetry to teach them or not? You sure they'll get it or not? And you see, there are normal ideas of what poetry is, and there are also normal ideas for what communities can achieve and what people can achieve. And if you accept them, and if you refuse to challenge them, then I'm afraid so many wonderful things and so many meaningful projects would not be accomplished. And the journey was a really, really beautiful one. I remember one of the workshops, this is me leading one of the workshops, by the way, but I remember there was also another workshop where I wasn't teaching, leading the workshop like this, but I was partnering one of the beneficiaries, and we were playing a game where all the beneficiaries had to write a poem. By then it was one of the advanced lessons, so they could write a poem already. They had to write a poem, and then they had to cut out the words of the poem, and then re-jumble it up to form a new poem. So we call that poetry earthquake. You jumble the first poem to form a new one. So my beneficiary was sitting next to me, and then she was just, the poem was really jumbled up, but she didn't know what to form the new poem to be. So she just kept very quiet, and I tried to encourage her. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, she started laughing. And then she started piecing the words together, and then started laughing again. I was like, why are you laughing out of nowhere? You were a bit confused at first. And then I looked at the new sentence that she formed, and on it, it said, excited eating friends and family. And so then, we both laughed, and I asked her, so you want to eat your mom or your dad first? Yeah, and she actually answered mom. I have no idea why. Yeah, but, little more, and by the way, this moment is actually captured on screen, so I thought it was a really nice picture to share. But moments like that really show you how the beneficiaries have improved linguistically and improved in their confidence since the first lesson. And more importantly, the kind of friendships that have been forged because of this entire project. So this brings me to my second enduring lesson for all of us, which is that there's nothing inherently normal about ideas. Whether ideas about projects, ideas about people, nothing inherently normal about them. Go out and challenge those ideas. Even the most ludicrous ideas, using poetry to engage communities with intellectual disabilities, they're not that ludicrous. In fact, they can be the new normal. And so, upon challenging the normalities of roles, normalities of ideas, the next thing I want to share with all of us is how can we see what is normal and what is not? That perspective, that glass, that lens. So in the next, during the entire project with APSN, I was also doing an internship with HP. You know, the printer and computer company. How many use HP here? Oh man, like I see so many apples. Okay, but yeah, I was interning at HP, and I was just an intern back then. It wasn't a very big role, but I already had an aspiration early on. If I can somehow bring HP and APSN together, well, it'd be amazing, right? But how? I mean, I'm just an intern. How am I going to shift a global MNC together with a local NGO? Actually, I also don't know, but I just had the idea. So there was one day where I found myself at this dinner with HP's Social Impact Committee, which is basically their CSR team, Corporate Social Responsibility. So I was in that dinner, and I remember that I was sitting at the side, because intern, you cannot be the VIP, so you get the leftover of the main food and stuff. But I was in that dinner table, and I remember that the committee was talking about some of the challenges they faced in HP. So one of the main challenges was they wanted to get more HP employees to volunteer. How can you increase volunteer engagement? They asked the whole table. So there and then I thought, I know how to do video montages. I can write well. Why not I do something about it? Maybe it's my chance to bring HP and APSN together also. So I raised this idea. How about in the next few months during my internship, I go for every of your social impact events. I will video everything. I will put a video montage after it. I will do a nice write-up. And then you can send it to your employees, and maybe more people will be interested. So the social impact leader looked at me and like, wow, intern suddenly talk so much, like whole table keep quiet. Yeah. And she said, okay, I don't mind letting you try it out, but since you'll be doing this extra for free, is there anything HP can do for you? That was the chance, that was the chance. So I said, I am doing a project with APSN. Could you support me with it? And I just gave her the details and stuff. And to my pleasant surprise, HP agreed. So in the next few months, I literally went down to every HP social impact event, took my little phone up and videoed every moment, and spent hours doing video montages for HP. And after all of these events, they would share those montages with all the employees in HP Singapore. But more importantly, my team and I, we managed to bring HP and APSN together. So one of those events that we managed to do collaborations with was when HP actually sponsored a brick-making session with APSN. HP sponsored the entire cost of it. They provided close to 20 volunteers, and the beneficiaries at APSN could actually learn how to make bricks, something that they would never get a chance to. So other collaborations include, we were planning this carnival that reached out to more than 10,000 people with APSN, and HP was one of the title sponsors. They even provided close to 200 HP employees on that Saturday. Again, I have no idea why anyone would work on a Saturday, but HP is pretty amazing employees. So I did a lot of other fascinating collaborations as well. For example, there was one time where there was this HP computer called the Sprout computer. Go and Google it after this session if you have time. I pitched this computer to APSN to try to convince them that this computer could actually transform classroom teaching and classroom learning. Yeah, a lot of these fascinating collaborations happened just because of that dinner, that particular night. So this brings me to my third point, which is the world is not a solid block. reality is malleable. This, sometimes we see things as very permanent, very fixed. Everything is so normal. And we don't see it in ourselves to have this impetus to challenge it. But let us remember this. None of us in this room are detached spectators subjected to some crazy notion of normal. Remember this. All of us are thinking, active participants of reality. Thinking, active participants of reality. And if we can look beyond the conventions of roles, challenge the archetypes of ideas, daring instead to shape this world that is a soft and malleable reality, then I really believe that some of the greatest problems in our world today can be faced with confidence. Thank you very much.